What up, what up, what up? How are y'all doing? Like always, I'm doing great. Now, we just had a weekend of boxing that was pretty much uneventful. We had some fights that we pretty much know who the winner was going to be before the fight happened. We had one decent heavyweight fight between Zilly Big Bang Zhang against Jerry Forrest that went in kind of a weird way. But since the boxing fights themselves were uneventful, we're going to talk about the big news that was promoted after the Canelo Yildirim fight. That being said, that news is May 8th, Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders in a unification fight for the WBO, the WBC, the Ring Magazine, and the WBA, I believe. Yep, because Caleb Plant has the IBF title. So it's going to be a unification fight. Now, Billy Joe Saunders has been looking for this fight for many years. Billy Joe Saunders signed twice to fight Triple G, and it fell through. And Billy Joe Saunders signed once to fight Canelo last May, but the fight got called off because of the pandemic. Now, Billy Joe Saunders had a chance to fight Canelo in December when Canelo Alvarez fought Callum Smith. Instead of Billy Joe Saunders showing up to collect a paycheck in December, he said, nope, I'm not going to be ready for the fight. And if I'm going to fight Canelo, I want to see how good I really am. And I want to fight Canelo at my best. So I cannot take the fight in December. So let's work on it for Cinco de Mayo in May. And that's exactly what we got, folks. May 8th, Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo Alvarez. Now, before Billy Joe Saunders was with Frank Warren Promotions, Queensberry Promotions, under Frank Warren, I should say. And he couldn't land the big fights. So what Billy Joe Saunders did last year, a couple fights ago, he signed with Matchroom. Now, the reason why Billy Joe Saunders signed with Matchroom is because Matchroom has DAZN as a network in the United States. And at that time, DAZN had Triple G and Canelo Alvarez. Those are the fights that Billy Joe Saunders wanted. So Billy Joe left his longtime promoter, Frank Warren, and signed with Eddie Hearn. And this is exactly the reason why he did so he could land these fights. Well, now he's got his wish. He's been calling out Canelo and Triple G for years. And now it's time to put up or shut up. Now, there's going to be a lot of people from the United States who probably know Canelo Alvarez that are just casual fans and say, oh my God, Canelo's fighting another guy from the UK. Who is this guy? Does he have any chance of beating Canelo Alvarez? Well, I'm here to tell you that yes, he has a chance of beating Canelo Alvarez. Why does Billy Joe Saunders have a chance to beat Canelo Alvarez? Well, we all know in Canelo's past that he has problems with southpaws, especially slick southpaws that move around, that are quick, that throw punches from odd angles. And that's exactly what Billy Joe Saunders does. He doesn't have the biggest power, but we have seen him drop people. Just go back and look at a fight if you want to see what Billy Joe Saunders is all about. Like Eddie Hearn says, his new promoter, there's two fights in particular that you should go back and watch. if you want to see what Billy Joe Saunders can do in the ring. The first fight you should watch is when Billy Joe Saunders won his 160-pound title. He did that off of Andy Lee, another Irish traveler. And Andy Lee comes from the Kronk Gym. He trained under Emmanuel Stewart. And you might also know Andy Lee because he was in the corner. He was the secondary coach behind Sugar Hill Stewart when Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder a year ago. Andy Lee is a very good fighter, and Billy Joe Saunders beat him at that time for the 160-pound WBO title. The next fight that you should watch, if you really want to see how I think Billy Joe Saunders is going to approach this fight, you need to go back and watch when Billy Joe Saunders went to Canada and fought a man by the name of David Lemieux. David Lemieux was known as a big power puncher that you did not want to get hit by any means. And what Billy Joe Saunders did to David Lemieux that night was flat out embarrassing. Billy Joe Saunders took him to school. He embarrassed him on his own in his own backyard in Montreal. And from that point on, Billy Joe Saunders thought that because he beat David Lemieux so bad, the likes of Triple G and Canelo Alvarez would not want to fight him. I don't know how true that was, but according to Billy Joe Saunders and according to Frank Warren, his old promoter, according to them, they signed twice to fight Triple G, and they were in talks a while ago to fight Canelo. But then the two fights between Canelo Alvarez and Triple G happened. Kind of left Billy Joe Saunders out in the cold. Now that Billy Joe Saunders is champion at 168, Canelo Alvarez's goal is to unify all the belts and become undisputed in the 168-pound division. Now, a couple things here. I could be wrong, but if you want to look them up, go ahead. I don't think there's been any fighter in the world that has unified the 168-pound division. And I also think that there's been no Mexican to ever unify a division. I think this is the reason why Canelo was so steadfast on staying in the 168-pound division and to clean up all the belts. Now, Canelo can do this by beating Billy Joe Saunders on May 8th. And if that happens, there's rumors or reports that after he beats Billy Joe Saunders, he's going to go and fight Caleb Plant, the 168-pound IBF world champion, in September. Well, Canelo Alvarez, it's good to set yourself goals, but you don't want to overlook someone like Billy Joe Saunders. Because there's some fights when you look at Billy Joe Saunders and you go, wow, this guy's an average guy. He's an average fighter. Well, the reason why sometimes Billy Joe Saunders looks average is because Billy Joe Saunders, outside of training camp, he lets himself go a little bit, puts on some pounds. And if he's not scheduled to fight a big fight, he don't put in 100% effort. He just doesn't, for whatever reason. But when the bright lights are on and he knows he's in a real fight, Billy Joe Saunders will up his game to match the level of whoever he is fighting. That's the wrap on Billy Joe Saunders. Now, is Canelo take this fight serious? Does he not train as hard? Because you got to think, Canelo Alvarez just fought at the end of December, I believe, against Callum Smith. He definitely fought in December. I just can't remember the date. And then in 2.5 months, he's already back in the ring, and he beat Yildirim last night. And now 3 months later, he's going to fight Billy Joe. Some fighters say being active is better for you. You know, you're sharp. You have no ring rust. You know, you're laser focused when you're more active. Now this will be his third fight in what, 6 months? Is that too much work on him? Does his body not have a chance to rest? Well, last night's fight against Yildirim, he didn't really have to do much. He only fought 3 rounds, and Yildirim didn't come out and answer the bell. But he did go 12 rounds with Callum Smith. Even though it was a one-sided fight, he still had to put the 12 rounds in and fight. So Canelo Alvarez has a couple things going on his side. He's more experienced. He has more power. And he has been very active. Billy Joe Saunders' last opponent wasn't really anybody to worry about. It was a lackluster performance, and he was actually probably either even or losing that fight until Billy Joe Saunders realized, wow, I got to pick it up because I might lose this fight. And he ended up knocking the guy out. That's Billy Joe Saunders in a nutshell. It's like, yeah, I'll fight him. Oh, I might be losing. Okay, now I'll turn it up and I'll knock him out. And that's what he did. But we know that Canelo has problems with southpaws. And you can go back and watch the fights with Adesanya Lara, Austin Trout. There was another one in there that he had problems with. But then Canelo, his only losses to Floyd Mayweather. In my eyes, Floyd Mayweather is the best fighter to ever live. And Canelo lost to him, and Canelo hasn't lost since. And a lot of people say that Canelo Alvarez learned a lot from that fight. And it goes to show, in my eyes. But ever since Lara, I believe Lara was his last real slick southpaw. Ever since then, he's been fighting guys like Triple G. He had 2 fights with him, kind of come forward. He fought Rocky Fielding, he's not mobile at all. Triple G wasn't mobile. Yildirim stood right in front of him and got pounded. Callum Smith, he was on the back foot all night, but he's not like he's quick, slick, and mobile. So everybody says Canelo Alvarez has gotten better since the Lara fight. Yes, Canelo has gotten better since the Lara fight. But since that Lara fight, I can't think of a slick southpaw or mobile fighter, or even just a mobile fighter in general, whether it's orthodox or southpaw, since the Lara fight. So yeah, Canelo has gotten better, but has he fought a mobile fighter since that fight with Lara? I don't think he has. I could be wrong. I don't have my other screen drawn up right now, so I can't pull up his box rack. So yeah, a lot of people are counting out Billy Joe Saunders. A lot of American fans are like, "Wow, why is he fighting another UK fighter?" Blah blah blah. Well, Billy Joe Saunders is a champion. So whether American fans like it or not, Canelo has a goal to become undisputed at 168. Billy's a champion. You have to fight him. So you fight Caleb Plant first, or you fight Billy Joe Saunders first. It makes sense you fight Billy Joe Saunders first because he's part of DAZN. So is Canelo Alvarez. So that's just logical. And for any people out there who do not know Billy Joe Saunders and is already writing him off, do some research, because I believe that this is going to be a battle for Canelo. He hasn't fought anybody like Billy Joe in years. Like I said, Lara was probably the last one, and I think Billy Joe Saunders beats Lara. So that's my opinion. You guys tell me what you think. This video's bandwagon fights, I'm going to give you two because they both involve the same person. I might have already used this fighter in another fight. I think I have. I think I told you about Marcus Maidana and Victor Vicious Ortiz. Well, I love Marcus Maidana, and here's another two fights from Marcus Maidana that you need to go and watch if you're a casual fan or even if you're a hardcore fan and somehow these fights slipped you by. Bandwagon fights for this week is going to be Marcos Maidana versus Soto Carras. And then you also want to check out Marcus Maidana against Jose Cito Lopez. Both were great fights. And yeah, if you have any suggestions, put it in the comments below of bandwagon fights for fans to check out in the future. If I pick your fight from the comments, I'll give you a shout out. And yeah, that's what this is all about. Bandwagon fights is about telling people about fights they might not have watched or might have missed and getting people to jump on the bandwagon of the sport I love so much, boxing. So yeah, please like, subscribe, share, and if you got a recommendation for bandwagon fights, put it in the comments below. Peace and love.